Johannesburg, Mayor Mpho Phalatse's future is anything but certain as minority parties weigh their opinions regarding yet another motion of no confidence against her. Ekurhuleni is still mayorless after the DA's Tania Campbell was ousted. And today, the ANC's deadline for branches to make nominations ahead of the elective conference in December. Plenty on the go. Let's unpack some of it with political analyst Professor Lesiba Teffo. Thank you very much for your time this evening. Like I say in my intro, plenty to unpack, Prof. And I want to start with the ANC. What with it being the news of the day, there's lists for the nominations ahead of the elective conference in December. A lot of anticipation and anxiety around who's going to be at the top of the nomination list and if President Cyril Ramaphosa still carries enough confidence in him to lead for a second term. What are your thoughts in terms of what's currently happening in those deliberations and what's likely to come out?
Greetings to you and the viewers. Let me just go straight to it. Look, do they have an alternative to Ramaphosa? The answer is in the negative. With all his shortcomings, it is still the best that the ANC can offer. And immediately I would move on to say, how did we arrive at a situation whereby out of 50 million people, we are confined to two names because of the nature of the electoral system that we have? There are capable men and women out there, not aligned to any color of any t-shirt, but whose commitment is to the national flag as well as the Constitution of the Republic. Yes, you can give Ramaphosa another 20 years. To which end? To which end? That is my question.
That's a very important question, and some of those names you speak of include Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, include Zweli Mkhize, who's been tated by Digital Vibes, and some other names as well that have received endorsement. You say there is no alternative, and yet there is a strong belief by provinces like the KZN, for example, that Zweli Mkhize is the man to lead the party, and ultimately, if they win 2024, the country. Your concerns about this candidate in particular and what he would bring on the table, if anything?
You see, look, we can prevaricate and skirt around the issue as we often do. The ANC is a fractured organization. And I said then, and I can repeat myself, it has reached a stage where it cannot redeem itself from itself. There are few leaders in the ANC who are inspiring confidence. And indeed, lest I'm accused of painting them with the same brush. Capable men and women, their names are not being mentioned. There's no dearth of political leadership in the ANC. But those who are projected and paraded as those who must lead us, surely they don't have the wherewithal. Neither the political acumen, the integrity, the stature, and the vision to transit us from the morass in which we find ourselves. And I always ask myself and my colleagues when we are under the Marula tree, you hardly hear the names of Nmotswaledi being mentioned, Didiza being mentioned, Pando being mentioned. I submit, not everybody there is incapable of taking us out of this to the promised land. ANC is endowed with talent, but it has gone too far in the wrong direction, even to see that talent within itself and to utilize it to its own benefit before it can benefit the country. Something is looming come 2024. And it's getting too late for them to save themselves from themselves.
I mean, some would argue that the names of the good people or the good candidates potentially that you've just mentioned there don't fit the certain agenda that many of them have grown to become accustomed to over the years. But of course, that is a conversation for another day. Let's move over to issues of the DA now. And are you concerned of the direction that the party is taking within key metro Ekurhuleni, Johannesburg, and just the tussle that has happened? And I want us to begin with Johannesburg because it's actually a joke. You know, the diddle-dallying of leadership that we've seen over the last few weeks is a joke because work needs to be done for community members, and that is simply not happening. What are your thoughts on what's currently happening with Mpho Phalatse in Johannesburg and really just the tussle with the other parties within the coalition?
Let me dismiss the DA question very quickly and then go to at least the coalition government. Simple and straightforward. In the first 10 years, ANC governed and it did fairly well. The people moved away from the ANC. And then people are in a privileged position to compare and contrast. And even the ANC research will tell you that wherever the DA governs, it governs well. It did its damnedest in the Western Cape to make it ungovernable. They have surrendered because the people there are more politically literate than in many other provinces. And I'm talking about not educational literacy. We've got men and women in parliament, by the way, with due respect, who have degrees, but who are politically bankrupt. Hence, the country finds itself where it is. You need political literacy. You need servant leadership. You need servanthood. People who see public office as about the public. But at the same time, yes, come back to the coalition government. Coalition governments work very well across the globe, and that's the future that we must prepare for. We can't run away from it. But if there is political immaturity, listen to the people when they speak. They don't speak about the people. They don't speak about the electorate. They don't speak about service delivery. They are looking for ways and means to access the national granary. How do we get there to the trough? And that's when I talk about political bankruptcy and political illiteracy, even if you have a PhD by your side.
Are you not concerned then, Prof, that when we get to 2024, and just begging on that point that you've made there about coalition governments are the future, it happens globally, and they've been proven to work very well. We've seen it time and again in South Africa, in our local government levels, that they just don't work. You've mentioned that a lot of these parties are looking out for their own interests. But should we get to a point where it now is at a national level, should we not be concerned that this may be the very same thing playing out at a national government level after the 2024 elections? Or are you confident that some form of maturity will come about within the next 2 years?
Do we have an option? I don't think so. We have to accept that that's the future that we must ready ourselves for, and we can't run away from it. It works in other parts of the world, where people are about the people, not themselves. The other is a primary objective, is the rationale, the ratio, the acte of my existence in parliament. I'm there to serve and not to be served. Yes, these are pains of labor, ma'am, and I think will mature with time. But there is a sine qua non, a necessary condition for a quicker maturity. Change the Electoral Act. Let men and women go there on the basis of the will of the people, sent by their constituencies and accountable to their constituencies. Because once you reach that stage, you know you owe it to your constituency. They can, as much as they can send you there through that cross, by the same cross, they can recall you. And that's how mature democracies of the world are surviving and are thriving. Kicking and screaming, we are going to change the Electoral Act. I think they're trying to be clever right now, those who are charged with changing the Electoral Act. But I'm sure the Constitutional Court will say, it's not what we ask you to do. It's about the future, no longer about me. It's about the future. It's about posterity. Let's change the Electoral Act in a very meaningful way, and we can save this country. It is within our hands. We have the wherewithal. There are men and women there, even in the African National Congress, who can take this country forward.